Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
We have an organization that loves to make a huge impact in every single client that we serve. Along with that, we have flexibility with our staff. We have the ability to work from anywhere, and we do incredibly meaningful work with hands-on training that happens day in and day out, including coaching so that you are consistently and constantly improving in the work that you do. Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast. My name is Tracy Shirk, and I'm the Chief Talent Officer here at Elevated Talent Consulting. And this week, we are talking about marketing for recruiting. So you just heard my little pitch about why we at Elevated Talent Consulting are a great place to work. And guess what? When we're recruiting, what are we doing? We're marketing. So I have Danielle Diel with me today, and Danielle is one of our HR consultants who works directly with our clients. And we're going to chat a little bit about some of the lessons that we have learned working with clients about recruiting, what works and what doesn't, as we attract and retain the best staff for our organizations. Danielle, welcome to the show again. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about recruiting is all about marketing.
So first, I have to say, this is a concept that when I explain it to people, not a lot of people get. It blows their mind when I explain it to them that when we're recruiting, we're marketing. And I like to think of it in the same way that we think of how we market ourselves to customers, right? In any business, you have a target customer. Well, when we're recruiting in any business, you have a target candidate, right? Based on their behaviors, we know this is going to be the ideal fit for the job. So instead of just casting a wide net and saying, ooh, who are we going to get? Using our recruiting and who we are to target the ideal candidate for the role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we target the ideal candidate, there's really three buckets that we're looking at, right? So the buckets that we're looking at when we recruit that candidate, the first one is culture. What is the culture of our organization and why would someone want to work here? And so I gave you a taste of that at the beginning, and we call this, what is your employee value proposition, right? So Danielle, why do you like working at Elevated Talent?
Well, a lot of the reasons that you gave, right? We have flexibility in what we do and how we do it. For me, that's huge, right? And that speaks to who I am as a person. I love the work that I do and getting to help people, right? And that's at the core of what we do, right? Because we want to help people. And that really speaks to my personal values. In what you just said, we're hitting on my values, right? My, ideals and my behaviors and kind of what I need to.
Right. Absolutely. And so much of culture also goes into, the behaviors that we do over and over again, right? So those behaviors go into, how do we hold individuals accountable? How do we hold ourselves accountable? Do we have transparency in the organization? Do we have, flexibility and fun? And so much of this goes back to, what are your core values as an organization and what is your mission and vision, right? So what's that vision casting you're doing and how you're going to get there? Because guess what's going to take you there? It's your people. And so if you don't attract the right people through marketing, so we want to make sure we're marketing the right people to take us to where we want to go, you're not going to get there. So when we are recruiting, it's so important that we pay attention to not just where we are today, because the people that got you to where you are today may not be, and typically are not, the same types of people that are going to get you to where you want to go tomorrow. And so we talk a lot about, value adds in the organization and culture adds versus culture fit. So when we look at this and where we're going, what would be a culture ad that really takes you to where you are going? So, some examples of a culture ad may be bringing someone in that's very operationally focused in a startup organization that can really bring in those project management tools, that can bring in those standard operating procedures to ensure that the scalability and growth is there. So that's kind of one key piece. The next, Danielle, you talk a lot about authenticity and how that fits in and what that looks like. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts?
So this is something that hits people differently, right? I'm huge on authenticity, as you just said, right? Because for me, I can tell. And again, that could just be one of my behavioral drives, but I can tell when something does not feel authentic. And I think a lot of people are the same way. And when we're looking at an organization, we want to know that what we're being told is actually what it's going to be. And people can tell if you're kind of, blowing smoke, right? So I have a lot of clients that are like, well, how can we market ourselves when we have, we want to be this, we want to have this kind of culture to appeal to this kind of candidate. And sometimes I have to have those hard conversations and say, but that's not who you are. And that's okay, right? It's okay. You don't need to be this cookie cutter version. You need to just understand who you are and what makes you so great. Don't try to fit, what that mold is, because you're awesome the way you are. You just need to recognize and celebrate that in an authentic way. And then people see it because you'll attract your really ideal candidate, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that authenticity goes all the way through, right? It's being, really clear about who we are as an organization. And that also is naming some things that may not always be looked at favorably. For example, we move really, really fast here. I mean, we move really fast and there's times where we need to pivot really fast. So, hey, why did you change your mind on that? Well, we changed it because of XYZ. And so that pivot is something that's really important. And that doesn't work for everyone, and working from home remotely does not work for everyone either. And those are things that become really important within a culture and ensuring that that is built into that marketing material. Because what we find so much in that authenticity is also you want to turn people off as much as you turn the right people on. So anyone that isn't a cultural fit, you want them going, I don't want to work there. There's no way. There's too much uncertainty. Great. See you later. Go find a place that is the perfect cultural fit for you because it's going to serve you.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And I think of it, one of the biggest mistakes I made when I was younger and I was doing job interviews, right? I'm going to interviews. I would mold who I was into who they wanted, even if it wasn't true to who I was. And I find sometimes, clients will do the same thing. They'll try to change who they are or airbrush who they are, right? Mm-hmm. To appeal to this certain kind of candidate. When I say, no, you need to be brutally honest, right? I'm not saying you need to air all of your dirty laundry, but be honest with who you are, right? If you're a startup and you have somebody come in that's like, well, I need a lot of policies and procedures. I know that there's not going to be a lot of change. I need a lot of, steady thing. Don't pretend like you can provide that to them if that's not who you are.
Right.
Just like me now going into things, going into meetings and interviews, even with clients, I say, look, this is who I am and this is how I work and this is what I can give you. I really hope that works, but I can't change that. Right. Or I'm okay with this at this point, right? We're not going to change that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing about kind of marketing here, and Danielle, I'm going to have you explain and kind of give the Cliff Notes process to how we market our recruitment when we're working with clients and what that looks like. But there is a distinction between what the organization needs and what the role needs. And so we just talked about the culture fit. The second piece is specifically looking at what is the job fit? What does the job specifically need? And as our listeners know, we're huge proponents of predictive index, and we use predictive index in, with ourselves and with our clients, et cetera. is really looking at doing a job assessment on what does the job need and calibrating that with your managers. But then it's also putting that information out there from a behavioral drive standpoint. And, that essentially says, hey, are you someone who loves to be outside on your feet, the entire time? You love to work out, you love to be constantly busy and constantly moving and working pretty independently on your own. If this sounds like something in an environment that would work for you, we have this amazing job, which is a landscape, it's a landscape person that is working within a landscape firm. And what they are doing is they are working on installing landscape, every day, all day. And because this person is starting kind of at that entry level position, they're outside, they're consistently moving, things around. It could be rocks, it could be, boulders, it could be sod, it could be whatever that is. And, most of the time they may be on their own, but they're definitely a part of a team. If that's something that interests you, here's the requirements for it, right? So that's an example of how we're using the behavioral traits along with what is in a job description to really recruit the right person without reading the job description and going, oh my gosh, let me hit my head against the wall. Nobody wants to read a job description. It's boring and it's needed, but it's not needed for recruitment. Because when we're marketing, it's like looking at the box of Tony the Tiger when we're walking down the grocery store aisle. I want to buy Tony the Tiger. I don't really care about what's on the nutrition facts on the side. Well, I do, but the nutrition facts on the side is not what is going to attract my attention. It's going to be Tony the Tiger. So when we are recruiting, we're marketing with Tony the Tiger. We're not marketing with the nutrition facts on the side.
Yes. Yes. And to take that even one step further, right?
Yes, please.
If I'm looking for cereal, right? The same way I would be looking for a job as a candidate, right? I know what to expect in my cereal. Every cereal I buy is probably going to have some kind of grains, some kind of sugar, right? Like it's not going to be a big surprise. The same as if I am, going to be a landscape artist, I know essentially what I can expect to be doing every day. There aren't going to be a whole ton of surprises, right? So don't tell me what I already know, right? Tell me what I really want to know, which is who you guys are.
Yes, I love it. And I think that really goes into, being proactive in your approach to building the culture and sharing who you are as an organization.
Yes. Yes. And, so when we say proactive, at least this is, what I mean when I'm talking to people is that doesn't mean you have to go out having a sales pitch, right? It just means that once you know who you are, actively celebrate who you are and don't hide it. So look for ways that you can, do things for your employees. If you have a lot of employees that are happy, get surveys from them and ask if you can share their feedback with other people, right? Get out in the community and do things that get you out into the community if it's something that aligns with your values as an organization, right? Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe you sponsor a little league team or something like that because you guys are all about getting outdoors and having fun in the summer. Just be proactive with it. Don't hide it. And also, when you market for your recruitment, ensure that you're marketing in the channels that align with who your ideal client is, right? And kind of understanding what type of candidates you might get from each channel, and making sure that you're hitting the right channels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we start to close this out here today, Danielle, what is a takeaway that you have for executives listening in?
So a takeaway I would have for, any executives or leadership team is when we look at culture is a direct result of the behaviors that we are allowing in our organization, whether good or bad. So if you look at those behaviors, that's an indicator of your culture. And if you want to change it, then you have to understand your responsibility in allowing or not allowing those behaviors that reflect that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's a takeaway for human resources professionals listening in today?
So kind of like what I said before. If you are recruiting, instead of trying to change who you are or what you offer, look at the positives of who you are and what you offer and really celebrate and build on those strengths that your organization already possesses.
Yeah. And what I love about that is I often will say to clients, tell that candidate like you're talking to your best friend. How are you going to tell them about your organization, right? They're like, well, all the good things and all the other things. I'm like, well, if there's a lot of bad things, then we need to work on fixing that, especially if you're in the HR seat. So, with that being said, yes, tell them all the things, because that's also that authenticity and that transparency and what that is and what you're building.
Yeah. And it's okay to recognize, hey, this part of who we are isn't where we want to be yet, but we're working towards it. We recognize that. People are going to respect that a whole lot more than if they come in and are like, oh, this is not like what they told me at all, right? It's okay to name that. I think people will respect that and appreciate that honesty.
Absolutely. So if you loved what you heard today, we have our Hire program that will be coming out in a couple of months, and our Inspire program is also starting. So our Hire and Inspire programs are a part of our programming of how do you build your human resources department from the ground up. So Hire focuses on that period of, setting up your HR department, really specifically looking at how do we create an employee value proposition? How do we specifically create a job description, a job ad? How do we onboard a new employee, et cetera? And Inspire is all about, you have these amazing people inside your organization. How do you ensure that they grow? How do you ensure that you have the talent pathways for them to move through the organization, and that you have the structures in place for documentation and ensuring that individuals have what they need to be successful? So essentially being fulfilled in their work while meeting the business outcomes. So if you're interested in either one of those programs, we will have information for you in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.